Welcome to my channel. My name's Jared. This is another Sunday update video. I also post silent build videos on Wednesdays, so be sure to check those out as well. Today, we're going to talk about the 356 and the Bushmaster. So, you may have noticed I didn't post any videos last week. There wasn't a Sunday update video and there wasn't a Wednesday build video. There's a few reasons for that. One of which is that I've really just been enjoying the 356. I've been driving it around. I've just spent days just driving pretty much all day. I took a few local trips, like day trips. I drove it down to Dana Point. I also drove it up to Big Bear Lake. Each of those was about a 6-hour round trip. So I've just really been enjoying the car. Another thing is that I've done some work to it since I got back from San Francisco. I mentioned in the past that the transmission had some leaks, and so I actually pulled the engine and transmission back out of the car, and I fixed most of the leaks. The main leak was the shaft going into the transmission, the shifter shaft on the front of the transmission. So that's why I pulled the transmission out. I fixed that, and I fixed the leak in the middle of the transmission where the plate goes onto it for the axle. So those were the two main areas that were leaking, but I still have a slight leak on the passenger side outer axle where the hub meets the axle. So I'm gonna do that one for a third time, and hopefully the third time will be the charm and I'll get that to stop leaking. But that's not as bad as it was before. And so I was able to go back to the oil that I like in the transmission. For the trip to San Francisco, I put some very thick oil in it because I didn't want it to leak out. And it made it difficult to downshift into second when the transmission was cold, which when I got to San Francisco, it was pretty cold outside, and so it didn't really ever warm up enough, the transmission, to shift smoothly. So anyway, I'm glad that I was able to get that thick oil out, and I went back to this oil which I prefer, which is this Honda motorcycle oil. I put this in all my old cars, and it works really good. And I'm not paid by them. I'm not, that's not a sponsor or anything. I just like that oil. So anyway, that's what's been going on with the 356. And you may also be able to hear in my voice I'm a little bit stuffed up. I've been sick this last week, so that's another thing that kept me from getting the videos out. But then the third thing is the Bushmaster. So I mentioned before that the next video will be on the Bushmaster, and hopefully it's just going to be one more video which will include the full restoration of the interior, and then this thing will be done. So in my last video, I showed you the interior was still in it, and I told you kind of what I was going to do. Well, as you can see now, I'm in the process of doing that. So I've got the interior pulled out. I just yesterday painted over all the bare metal with rust reformer. When they built this truck, they didn't put any kind of protective coating over the welds or the metal. They just used steel that was unprotected, and then when they welded it and it burnt off the paint, they just left it exposed. Now, luckily, you shouldn't get much moisture in here, so it hasn't really had that bad of an effect on it. But I did go ahead and treat all of that surface rust that was on all those areas. So that's coming out nicely. And this inside part does not really bother me that much. I do still need to figure out exactly how I'm going to kind of frame up and make the headliner, but this is all pretty much as I expected, and it shouldn't take too long. But up here on the windshield, I did expect this as well. But it's going to be a little bit more challenging than I originally thought. So you can see there's a lot of rust here along the lower windshield frame. And I knew there was some, but of course, once you get the window out, you see how bad it really is. It's not actually as bad as it looks, in that it's not really a structural issue, and it's not actually letting water into the cab. So any water that goes through these rust holes goes into this drain pan, and it drains out of the car just like it would if it were to go through the grills on this body panel that goes here. So the water's not getting into the cab, and there are two pieces that connect at this joint, and the lower piece is very solid, and so structurally it's just fine. It was supporting the window as it should, and again, there's no water getting into the cab. So it's not as big of an issue as it looks like it would be, but I still need to cut this out and try to repair it as best I can. It's going to be difficult to do because this is a curved section and it has all these bends in it, so it's going to be very difficult to try to bend and curve the sheet metal to make it fit these spaces. So it's going to be challenging, but I will do the best I can. The good news is that you can barely see this section. Once the windshield is in and once this piece of this panel pieces in here, you only see like maybe 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch of this thing at the very bottom of the windshield. So I will be able to paint it. I have some spray paint that's paint matched pretty closely to the car. So I will be able to paint it, and you really won't even see it when it's done. So it's not a matter of making this look perfect, but it is a matter of trying to bend the metal and weld it back into these places and also not affect the dash. I'm gonna have to have like a welding blanket on here to try to protect things. So this is gonna be the biggest challenge for sure of this part of the project. So anyway, that's kind of slowing things down a little bit. So I don't know if I will have a build video out this coming Wednesday, but I should by the following Wednesday. So anyway, that's kind of what's going on. That's why there haven't been as many videos as normal, but I am still making progress on this. And like I said, I've been enjoying the 356. I spent all that time building it. I really just wanted to drive it. I just didn't have the motivation to come in here and work. When I had this thing sitting here, I just wanted to go for a drive. So anyway, that's all for this week, guys. Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Bye.